What if I told you that the very thing you've been seeking your entire life, comfort, security, that feeling of having it all figured out, is actually the silent killer of your potential? What if the moment you finally achieve that comfortable life you've been working toward is the exact moment your growth stops dead in its tracks? I know this sounds harsh, maybe even counterintuitive. After all, isn't comfort what we're all supposed to be striving for? Isn't that the whole point of success? To reach a place where we don't have to struggle anymore, where we can finally relax and enjoy the fruits of our labor? But here's what I've discovered through years of observing human behavior, studying peak performers, and honestly, making this mistake myself. Comfort is not the reward for growth, it's the end of it. The moment we settle into our comfort zones, the moment we stop feeling that healthy tension of uncertainty and challenge, we begin a slow but inevitable decline. Not just in our achievements, but in our very essence as evolving beings. Think about this for a moment. When was the last time you experienced significant growth while feeling completely comfortable? When did you develop a new skill, break through a limiting belief, or discover something profound about yourself while everything was easy and predictable? I'm willing to bet it wasn't during those smooth, comfortable periods. It was during the times when you were stretched, challenged, maybe even a little scared. There's something happening in our culture right now that most of us miss because we're so focused on achieving comfort and avoiding discomfort. We've been sold this idea that the goal of life is to eliminate struggle, to create a perfectly predictable, controlled environment where nothing can disturb our peace. But what if this very pursuit is what's keeping us small? Have you ever noticed how the most comfortable periods of your life often become the most stagnant? You finally land that dream job, settle into a routine, find your rhythm, and then nothing. Months pass, maybe even years, and you realize you haven't grown, haven't learned anything new, haven't pushed yourself beyond what you already know you can do. Let me paint a picture that might feel uncomfortably familiar. You wake up in your comfortable bed, in your comfortable home, eat your comfortable breakfast, drive your comfortable route to your comfortable job, where you perform comfortable tasks that you've mastered long ago. You interact with the same comfortable people, have the same comfortable conversations, and return home to your comfortable evening routine. Rinse and repeat. On the surface, this sounds ideal. No stress, no uncertainty, no risk of failure or embarrassment. You've successfully created a life where you rarely have to face the unknown or deal with anything that might challenge your current capabilities. You've achieved what society tells us we should want: security, predictability, control. But here's what happens beneath the surface, so gradually that most people don't even notice it until it's too late. Your mind, which is designed to grow and adapt, begins to atrophy. Your creativity, which thrives on novel challenges, starts to wither. Your confidence, which is built through overcoming obstacles, begins to erode because you haven't faced any real challenges in so long. You start to notice a restlessness, a feeling that something is missing even though you have everything you thought you wanted. You might catch yourself daydreaming about adventures you'll never take, skills you'll never develop, conversations you'll never have because they're all outside your comfortable bubble. The very security you worked so hard to create becomes a prison. This isn't just about career stagnation, though that's certainly part of it. This pattern infiltrates every area of life. Relationships become comfortable but shallow because you've learned to avoid difficult conversations. Your physical health plateaus because you found an exercise routine that's easy and non-threatening. Your intellectual growth stops because you only consume information that confirms what you already believe. Here's the cruel irony. The more comfortable you become, the more uncomfortable anything outside that comfort zone feels. It's like a muscle that atrophies from lack of use. People who haven't challenged themselves in years find even small risks absolutely terrifying. The thought of learning a new skill, meeting new people, or changing any aspect of their routine creates anxiety that feels insurmountable. What's particularly insidious about this is how it disguises itself as wisdom or maturity. We tell ourselves we're being responsible, practical, realistic. We've learned from our mistakes, and now we're playing it safe. We convince ourselves that the restlessness we feel is just a phase, that we should be grateful for the stability we have. But deep down, there's a part of you that knows better. There's a part of you that remembers what it felt like to be fully alive, fully engaged, growing and evolving. That part of you is trying to tell you something important. You weren't designed for comfort. You were designed for growth, and growth requires discomfort. The most successful people, the most fulfilled people, the people who seem to radiate aliveness and purpose, they've all figured out this fundamental truth. They've learned to see comfort not as the destination, but as a rest stop. They use it to recharge, to integrate what they've learned, but they never mistake it for the journey itself. Let me tell you about Sarah, a client of mine who perfectly embodied this transformation. When I first met her, she was the picture of comfortable success. She had worked her way up to a senior management position at a Fortune 500 company, earned a six-figure salary, owned a beautiful home in the suburbs, and had what most people would consider an enviable life. But Sarah came to me because she felt completely empty inside. "I have everything I thought I wanted," she told me, "but I feel like I'm dying a slow death. Every day is exactly the same. I could do my job in my sleep, my relationships are pleasant but superficial, and I can't remember the last time I felt truly excited about anything." Sarah had spent the last 15 years methodically eliminating uncertainty from her life. She had the same breakfast every morning, took the same route to work, ordered the same lunch, and followed the same evening routine. She avoided any situation that might challenge her or make her uncomfortable. She had created what she thought was the perfect life, but she had also created a cage. The breakthrough came when I asked her a simple question. When was the last time you felt truly alive? Without hesitation, she told me about a backpacking trip she had taken through Southeast Asia in her 20s. For 3 months, she had navigated foreign cultures, communicated in broken languages, slept in unfamiliar places, and solved problems she had never encountered before. Every day brought new challenges, new discoveries, new growth. "I was terrified half the time," she admitted, "but I was also more alive than I've ever been. I learned things about myself that I never would have discovered in my comfortable life back home. I developed confidence I didn't know I had, resilience I didn't know I possessed." That conversation was the catalyst for everything that followed. Sarah realized that in her pursuit of comfort, she had lost touch with the person she really was. She had traded her growth for security, her aliveness for predictability. The transformation didn't happen overnight, and it wasn't without its challenges. Sarah began by introducing small discomforts into her daily routine. She took different routes to work, tried new restaurants, engaged in conversations with strangers. Each small step outside her comfort zone reminded her what it felt like to be fully present and engaged. Then she began taking bigger risks. She signed up for a pottery class, something she had always wanted to try but had convinced herself she wasn't artistic enough for. She joined a hiking group and pushed herself to tackle trails that scared her. She started having the difficult conversations in her relationships that she had been avoiding for years. The real breakthrough came when she decided to completely change careers. At 42, with all the comfort and security she had built, Sarah chose to leave her corporate job and start her own consulting business. It was terrifying, uncertain, and completely outside everything she had built her identity around. For the first time in 15 years, she told me 6 months later, "I wake up excited about my day. I'm learning constantly, solving new problems, meeting incredible people. Some days are harder than anything I experienced in my corporate job, but I feel like myself again. I feel alive." This story illustrates a profound truth about human nature that we often forget. We are not meant to remain static. We are designed to grow, to evolve, to continuously become more than we were yesterday. Comfort, while necessary in small doses, becomes toxic when it becomes our permanent state. Think about this in terms of nature, which always provides the clearest metaphors for human experience. A tree that never experiences wind develops weak roots and brittle branches. It looks healthy in calm weather, but the first real storm will knock it down. Trees that grow in windy conditions develop deep, strong root systems and flexible branches that can bend without breaking. The same principle applies to us. Challenges, discomfort, and uncertainty aren't obstacles to overcome. They're the conditions necessary for developing our full capacity. They force us to dig deeper, reach higher, and discover capabilities we didn't know we had. Here's what transforms everything about growth and comfort. The very discomfort you've been avoiding is actually the signal that you're expanding beyond your current limitations. It's not something to be eliminated, it's something to be embraced as the indicator that real transformation is happening. Most people have this completely backwards. They think discomfort means something is wrong, that they're on the wrong path, that they should retreat back to what feels safe and familiar. But discomfort is actually your inner guidance system telling you that you're growing, that you're moving into new territory, that you're becoming more than you were before.
Let me share a story that perfectly illustrates this principle. There was once a master craftsman who was renowned for creating the most beautiful pottery in his village. His pieces were sought after by collectors from distant lands, and he had achieved everything a potter could hope for: recognition, wealth, and the respect of his peers. But as the years passed, the master craftsman noticed something troubling. His work, while technically perfect, had lost something essential. The spark of creativity, the joy of discovery, the thrill of not knowing exactly how a piece would turn out. All of this had disappeared. He could create beautiful pottery, but he could also create it with his eyes closed. There were no surprises left. One day, a young apprentice approached him with a radical suggestion. "Master," the apprentice said, "what if you tried working with your non-dominant hand? What if you used clay you've never worked with before? What if you attempted techniques you've never tried?" The master craftsman's first instinct was to dismiss the suggestion. Why would he deliberately make his work more difficult when he had already achieved mastery? Why would he risk failure when he could guarantee success? But something deep inside him recognized the wisdom in the apprentice's words. That night, he went to his workshop and began working with his left hand instead of his right. The first attempts were clumsy, frustrating, nothing like the elegant pieces he could create with his dominant hand. His carefully developed muscle memory was useless. He had to think about every movement, feel his way through each step. But something magical happened. As he struggled with these new limitations, he discovered techniques he never would have found otherwise. The imperfections in his motor control led to unexpected textures and forms. The need to slow down and pay attention to every detail brought back the mindfulness that had been missing from his work. Most importantly, he felt alive again. The comfortable mastery he had achieved had actually been limiting his growth. By deliberately choosing discomfort, by embracing the uncertainty of not knowing exactly how things would turn out, he rediscovered his creativity and passion. This story reveals a profound truth. True mastery isn't about reaching a point where everything becomes easy and predictable. True mastery is about continuously expanding into new challenges while maintaining the foundation of everything you've learned before. While most people see comfort as an end goal, believing that once they achieve it, they'll be happy and fulfilled, the real secret is understanding that comfort is meant to be a temporary state, a place to rest and integrate before the next phase of growth. The most fulfilled people in any field are those who have learned to dance with discomfort, who see challenges not as problems to be solved once and for all, but as opportunities for continuous expansion. They understand that the moment they stop growing is the moment they start dying, not just professionally or creatively, but spiritually and emotionally as well. This is why you often see successful people who seem to sabotage their own comfort. They'll leave secure jobs to start new ventures, abandon proven formulas to experiment with new approaches, or take on challenges that seem unnecessary from the outside. It's not self-destructive behavior, it's self-preserving behavior. They understand that their aliveness depends on their willingness to keep growing. The discomfort you feel when stepping outside your comfort zone isn't a warning sign, it's a growth sign. It's your indication that you're accessing parts of yourself that have been dormant, that you're developing new capabilities, that you're evolving into a more complete version of who you're meant to be.
Now that you understand why comfort can be the enemy of growth,
Let me share a practical framework for cultivating the kind of strategic discomfort that leads to transformation. This isn't about creating chaos or suffering for its own sake. It's about intelligently designing challenges that expand your capacity while building on your existing strengths. Foundation 1. Awareness. The first step is developing awareness of your current comfort zones and how they might be limiting you. Most people are unconscious of just how narrow their daily experience has become. They've gradually eliminated uncertainty and challenge so systematically that they don't even realize how confined their world has become. Start by conducting what I call a comfort audit of your life. For 1 week, pay attention to every choice you make and ask yourself, am I choosing this because it's the best option or because it's the comfortable option? Notice how often you default to the familiar path, not because it serves your growth, but because it feels safe. Look at your daily routines, your social interactions, your professional challenges, your physical activities, your learning habits, and your entertainment choices. In each area, identify where you've created such predictable patterns that no growth is possible. This isn't about judging these choices, many comfortable routines serve important purposes, but about becoming conscious of where comfort might be limiting your evolution. Pay particular attention to the subtle ways you avoid discomfort. Notice when you choose not to speak up in meetings, not to try new activities, not to have difficult conversations, or not to tackle challenging projects. These small avoidances might seem insignificant individually, but collectively, they create a life that's far smaller than your potential. Also become aware of the stories you tell yourself to justify staying comfortable. I'm too old to try that. I'm not the type of person who does those things. I don't have time for new challenges. I'm happy with what I have. While some of these might be true, often they're just comfortable lies we tell ourselves to avoid the discomfort of growth. The goal of this awareness phase is not to immediately change everything, but to see clearly how your current choices are shaping your life. Awareness itself is transformative because once you see how you're limiting yourself, you can't unsee it. Foundation 2. Design. Once you're aware of your comfort zones, the next step is to thoughtfully design challenges that will expand them. This is where most people make the mistake of either staying too comfortable or creating unnecessary chaos. The key is to find what I call optimal discomfort, challenges that stretch you without breaking you. Think of this like physical exercise. If you lift weights that are too light, you won't get stronger. If you lift weights that are too heavy, you'll get injured. The optimal weight is one that challenges your current capacity while still being manageable with effort and focus. Start with what I call micro-challenges, small departures from your usual patterns that create just enough discomfort to wake up your growth instincts. Take a different route to work, try a new type of cuisine, start a conversation with someone you wouldn't normally talk to, or attempt a skill you've always assumed you couldn't learn. The beauty of micro-challenges is that they're small enough to feel manageable, but significant enough to remind you what it feels like to operate outside your automatic patterns. They rebuild your tolerance for uncertainty and your confidence in your ability to handle the unknown.
As you become more comfortable with being uncomfortable, gradually increase the scope of your challenges. Sign up for a class in something you've never tried, volunteer for a project at work that scares you a little, plan a trip to a place where you don't speak the language, or commit to a physical challenge that will require you to develop new capabilities. The key is to always have something on the horizon that makes you a little nervous when you think about it. This creates what psychologists call optimal anxiety, enough arousal to keep you alert and growing without overwhelming your system. Also, design challenges in multiple areas of your life simultaneously. Don't just focus on professional growth while letting your physical, social, or creative capacity stagnate. A well-rounded growth program engages all dimensions of your humanity. Foundation 3. Integration. The third foundation is learning to integrate the insights and capabilities you develop through facing challenges. This is where many people fail. They create discomfort but don't take time to process and internalize what they learn from it.
After each challenge or uncomfortable experience, take time to reflect on what you discovered about yourself. What capabilities did you access that you didn't know you had? What fears turned out to be smaller than you imagined? What assumptions about yourself or the world were challenged? Keep a growth journal where you document not just what you did, but what you learned about your own capacity and resilience. Over time, this creates a powerful reference library of evidence that you can handle more than you think you can. Also, pay attention to how successfully navigating challenges changes your relationship with future uncertainty. Notice how your confidence grows not just in specific skills, but in your general ability to figure things out, adapt, and thrive in unfamiliar situations. Integration also means allowing periods of consolidation between major challenges. Growth happens not just during the stretch periods, but during the integration periods when your system processes and incorporates new capabilities. Don't feel pressure to constantly be in challenge mode. Create rhythms that include both expansion and integration. Use your comfortable periods strategically as preparation for the next phase of growth. Let them be times of rest and planning rather than permanent settlements. Foundation 4. Evolution. The fourth foundation is understanding that this process of growth through strategic discomfort is not a project to be completed, but a way of life to be embraced. The goal isn't to reach a point where you no longer need challenges, it's to become someone who thrives on continuous evolution. As you develop greater capacity for handling uncertainty and challenge, your definition of what constitutes meaningful discomfort will evolve. What seemed impossible a year ago might now feel routine. This isn't a sign that you should stop growing, it's a sign that you're ready for the next level of challenges. Regularly reassess your comfort zones and identify new edges to explore. The person you become through facing challenges will have different possibilities available than the person you were before. Stay curious about what new capabilities you might develop, what new contributions you might make, what new levels of aliveness you might access. Also, recognize that growth through challenge is ultimately about service, not just personal development. As you expand your own capacity, you become more able to contribute to others, to handle larger responsibilities, to make a greater impact in the world. Your personal growth is actually a gift to everyone whose life you touch. The people who inspire us most, who seem to radiate vitality and purpose regardless of their age, are those who have embraced this path of continuous growth. They've learned to see comfort as a rest stop rather than a destination, challenge as opportunity rather than obstacle, and uncertainty as the space where all possibilities live. Remember that choosing growth over comfort is ultimately choosing life over mere existence. It's choosing to remain awake and engaged rather than sleepwalking through your days. It's choosing to discover who you're capable of becoming rather than staying who you've always been. Your comfort zone isn't your friend. It's a beautiful prison that will keep you safe, small, and ultimately unfulfilled. The moment you recognize this and choose to step outside it, you begin the most important journey of your life, the journey of becoming fully yourself. The discomfort you feel when growing isn't something to be avoided, it's something to be celebrated. It's the feeling of your limitations expanding, your capabilities developing, your life becoming larger and more meaningful. Don't wait for the perfect moment or the ideal challenge. Start where you are with what you have. Choose one small area where you've been too comfortable for too long and take one small step outside that familiar territory. Then take another and another. Your future self, the person you're capable of becoming, is waiting for you just outside your current comfort zone. The only question is whether you'll have the courage to go meet them. But let me be completely honest with you about what this journey looks like in practice, because I don't want to paint an unrealistic picture. Choosing growth over comfort isn't always inspiring or motivational. Sometimes it's messy, sometimes it's frustrating, and sometimes you'll question whether it's worth it. There will be days when you'll look at people living comfortable, predictable lives and feel envious. You'll wonder why you can't just be satisfied with what you have, why you always feel this pull towards something more challenging, something uncertain, something that might not work out the way you hope. I remember a conversation I had with a successful entrepreneur who had built and sold 3 companies. He was in his 50s, financially secure, and could have easily retired to a comfortable life of leisure. Instead, he was starting his 4th company, tackling a problem he had never solved before, learning skills he had never developed. "Why do you keep doing this to yourself?" I asked him. "You've already proven everything you need to prove. You could live comfortably for the rest of your life." He was quiet for a long moment, then said, "Because comfort feels like death to me. When I'm not growing, when I'm not challenged, when I know exactly how each day is going to unfold, I feel like I'm already in the grave. The uncertainty, the risk, the possibility of failure, that's what makes me feel alive." This is the paradox of growth-oriented living. It's simultaneously the most fulfilling and the most demanding way to live. It requires you to constantly bet on yourself, to believe in your ability to figure things out, to trust that you can handle whatever challenges arise. It also requires you to redefine your relationship with failure. In a comfort-focused life, failure is something to be avoided at all costs. In a growth-focused life, failure becomes valuable feedback, a necessary part of the learning process, proof that you're pushing boundaries rather than playing it safe.
Let me share another story that illustrates this beautifully. Maria was a talented musician who had spent 20 years playing the same type of music, performing at the same venues, earning a comfortable living doing what she knew she could do well. She was good at it, people appreciated her work, and she had built a stable career. But Maria had always been curious about jazz, a completely different musical tradition that would require her to develop new skills, learn new ways of thinking about music, and risk performing poorly while she learned. For years, she told herself she was too old to start over, too established in her current style to risk branching out. Finally, at age 45, she decided to take jazz lessons. The first few months were humbling. She, who was considered an expert in her field, was suddenly a beginner again. Her fingers didn't know where to go, her ear couldn't follow the complex harmonies, her timing was off. There were moments when she wanted to quit, when the comfort of returning to what she knew felt overwhelmingly appealing. But something kept her going, the spark of excitement she felt when she occasionally played something that surprised her, the aliveness that came from not knowing exactly how a piece will turn out. 2 years later, Maria was performing jazz regularly and had developed a unique style that combined elements from both of her musical backgrounds. More importantly, her original music had been revitalized by the new perspectives and techniques she had learned. She hadn't just added a new skill, she had become a more complete musician. "I realize now that I had been living in a musical prison of my own making," she told me. "I was so afraid of being bad at something that I never discovered what I might be capable of if I was willing to be bad at it first." This brings up another crucial aspect of growth-oriented living, the willingness to be a beginner. Our culture often teaches us that expertise is the goal, that once we become good at something, we should stick with it. But the people who continue growing throughout their lives have mastered the art of returning to beginner's mind whenever they encounter something new. There's a Zen saying, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few." The expert knows what works, what doesn't work, what's possible, what's impossible. The beginner is open to discovering something entirely unexpected. This doesn't mean abandoning expertise. It means being willing to be both expert and beginner simultaneously. You can be highly skilled in your area of expertise while remaining completely open to learning in new areas. You can have deep knowledge while maintaining what the Buddhists call don't know mind. The practical implications of this are profound. It means being willing to ask questions that might make you look ignorant. It means being willing to try things you might fail at. It means being willing to be seen as incompetent while you're learning something new. Most people avoid this because it threatens their identity as competent, capable individuals. They've worked hard to build an image of themselves as people who know what they're doing, and the thought of being seen as confused or struggling feels intolerable. But here's what I've observed. The people who are most respected, most trusted, most sought after for their wisdom are those who are comfortable saying, "I don't know," when they don't know, who are willing to be vulnerable about their learning process,
who model what it looks like to be curious rather than certain. They understand that true confidence comes not from having all the answers, but from trusting your ability to find the answers when you need them. They know that real expertise includes knowing the boundaries of your expertise and being excited rather than threatened by what lies beyond those boundaries. This is perhaps the most revolutionary aspect of choosing growth over comfort. It changes your relationship with knowledge itself. Instead of trying to accumulate enough information to feel secure, you become comfortable with uncertainty. Instead of seeking to have all the answers, you become skilled at asking better questions. You begin to see your life not as a problem to be solved once and for all, but as an ongoing experiment to be conducted with curiosity and courage. Each challenge becomes a hypothesis to test. Each failure becomes data to incorporate. Each success becomes a foundation for the next exploration. This experimental approach to life is what separates those who thrive from those who merely survive. Survivors are focused on avoiding negative outcomes, maintaining what they have, protecting themselves from loss. Thrivers are focused on discovering positive possibilities, creating something new, expanding their capacity to contribute. The beautiful paradox is that this experimental, growth-oriented approach actually creates more security than the comfort-seeking approach, just not the kind of security most people think they want. Instead of the false security of knowing exactly what tomorrow will bring, you develop the real security of knowing you can handle whatever tomorrow brings. Instead of the brittle security of having everything figured out, you develop the flexible security of being able to figure things out. Instead of the limited security of being good at one thing, you develop the expansive security of being able to learn anything. This is the kind of security that can't be taken away by economic downturns, technological changes, or unexpected life events. It's the security that comes from trusting yourself rather than trusting your circumstances. As we come to the end of our time together, I want to leave you with this final thought. The choice between comfort and growth isn't a one-time decision. It's a choice you make every day, sometimes multiple times a day. Each moment presents you with the opportunity to choose the familiar or the unknown, the safe or the stretching, the comfortable or the transformative. Most of these choices seem small and insignificant in the moment, whether to speak up in a meeting or stay quiet, whether to try something new or stick with what you know, whether to have a difficult conversation or avoid it, whether to take on a challenging project or delegate it to someone else. But these small choices accumulate into the larger pattern of your life. They determine whether you spend your days expanding or contracting, whether you end each day slightly larger or slightly smaller than you began it, whether you're moving toward your potential or away from it. The invitation I'm offering you isn't to revolutionize your entire life overnight. It's to begin paying attention to these daily choices and consciously choosing growth over comfort more often than you have been. It's to start seeing discomfort as information rather than instruction, as a signal that you're growing rather than a warning that you're in danger. Your comfort zone will always be there waiting for you when you need to rest and integrate what you've learned, but don't mistake it for home. Your real home is in the space of continuous becoming, in the journey of discovering who you're capable of being when you're not limited by who you've been. The time for comfortable living isn't when you're young and capable and full of potential. The time for comfortable living is never, if what you want is a life of meaning, contribution, and continuous awakening to your own possibilities. The biggest threat to your growth isn't the challenges you'll face when you step outside your comfort zone. The biggest threat to your growth is the seductive whisper of comfort itself, telling you that you've grown enough, learned enough, risked enough. Don't listen to that whisper. Listen instead to the deeper voice that called you to this message in the first place. The voice that knows you're capable of more than you've yet discovered. The voice that refuses to let you settle for a small, safe, predictable life when an expansive, meaningful, transformative life is available to you. That voice is your truest self, calling you home to the life you were meant to live.
The only question remaining is whether you'll answer.